off a screen, into the lane. He looks to feed to Nurk, outside to Grant for the tie. That's an air ball, but it's plucked out of midair by Damian. Lillard turns, 11 seconds remaining. Finds Grant up top. Now they've got to shoot a three, and it's Nurkic. A set shot for the tie, no. Rebound back tap by Grant. Poked by Hart, grabbed by Simon, still a chance to tie. Off the back iron and out. Ball game over.
You see the look on this man's face? He's tired of losing, tired of being in a state of mediocrity season after season and realizing his career is passing right before him. And it makes you wonder, at what point will this superstar who has been a top 10 player in the league finally admit that he wants out of Portland, a player that has been so loyal to this organization and a team that has also been so loyal and rewarded him for his play over the course of his career. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy the content, feel free to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss an episode. And in return, I'll be providing more NBA content like this all season long. Now, back in the 2012 draft and leading up to that season, no one was talking about Damian Lillard. All eyes were fixated on the once-in-a-generation talent out of Kentucky and Anthony Davis, and for good reason. He was a 19-year-old phenom who could score, defend, and handle the ball with his incredible footwork. That was something any team in the NBA would be dying to get their hands on. And while Damian Lillard had loads of talent and was rising in the ranks of the draft leaderboard as one of the best college players in basketball, there was some hesitancy around drafting a 4-year college player who was putting up crazy numbers but in a weak conference in the NCAA. So when the Blazers drafted Lillard with the 6th overall pick, there was skepticism on making the selection over guys like Harrison Barnes, Andre Drummond, and even Austin Rivers. But right away, Damian Lillard became a standout without any concerns of his game translating to the NBA level, making an immediate impact for the Blazers, averaging over 19 points per game and 6.5 assists on solid efficiency, and ultimately winning Rookie of the Year. And right away, you knew that this kid was going to be something special. The following season, in his sophomore year, Lillard had already become an all-star. He would go on to be selected to multiple all-star teams as well as all-NBA selections, and Lillard eventually grew into being a superstar and one of the greatest players in Portland's franchise history. But despite all the success, the rise to fame and stardom, Damian Lillard and the Blazers could never get over that hump, season after season, coming up short in the playoffs. And while over the last 3 to 4 seasons, there's always been speculation as to whether Lillard is happy and would ask out of Portland to go to a true contender, Dame has stayed true and loyal to this franchise, always stating that his heart is in Portland, how he has no plans to leave, and will finish his career out with the Blazers. And the Blazers, in turn, have also rewarded him for his loyalty, signing him to supermax extensions, signing him to extensions well in advance of when his contract is due, when they could have easily waited to see how he performs and whether he would show any signs of decline in his 30s, and give the Blazers credit. They knew they had a franchise player on their hands, and being in a small market, being a team that hasn't really won a lot or had a ton of success, having not been to the finals since 1992, they did everything in their power to retain this guy and build around him. When it was clear that CJ McCollum and Lillard, that duo, wasn't working out and only going to take them so far, they moved McCollum and got a pretty sizable haul of players for him in return. They made a trade for Jeremy Grant to get some scoring and size around Dame. They drafted Anthony Simons, which was a great steal and a late first-round pick. When you think about what he's been able to do now and putting up over 22 points per game on solid efficiency, they picked up one of the better defending guards in the league in Gary Payton II after his championship run with the Warriors, and a key piece to that team. Like, the Blazers have done what they can in working in the confines of a small market team, but still, it is not enough. And despite the Blazers having some initial success to start the season, they have fallen short, all the way to hitting a new low on the season, falling even out of the play-in, currently sitting 11th in the West and having lost 8 of their last 10 games. And you'd have to think, at some point, despite Damian claiming otherwise in his instance on finishing his career in Portland, at some point, he will finally say, enough is enough, and request out of Portland. Players can preach loyalty, sticking with the team through thick and thin, but eventually you reach a breaking point where, when you're one of the best players in the league and your team has done nothing to improve over the last few seasons. And don't get me wrong, some of the blame should be on Damian Lillard himself. Like, as most superstars, they often get a bit of tunnel vision, try to do too much, control the game themselves without trusting their teammates. And Lillard's efficiency overall has gone down from what we saw prior to his injury in 2021. So yes, there is some accountability that needs to be placed on Dame himself. But come on now. This isn't how you build around a franchise player like Lillard. I get that you tried to make moves by bringing in Grant and Payton. They re-signed Nurkic to a fairly team-friendly extension. Locking up Simons was smart, although it was probably a bit of an overpay. But knowing you have a superstar, a future Hall of Famer still in their prime, but at the tail end of their prime, and you don't make considerable moves, doing everything in your power to build a title team around them. And look, at this point, if I'm the Blazers, because these rumors have been going on for some time now on whether they should blow it up, trade Lillard, and get a massive haul for him while he still has value, and send him to a title team that is willing to overpay to get him to put them over the top and winning a championship. If the trend continues, now being halfway through the season, and you're looking like you're going to miss the playoffs yet again, I think it's very enticing to make that move. And if I'm Damian Lillard, I got paid what I wanted. I'm under contract all the way through 2027. I request a trade and work with the organization in finding the right trade partner that suits what I'm looking for. Yes, it's commendable that Lillard isn't that superstar who doesn't get disgruntled at the first sign of poor performance and roster construction and demands to get moved. Yes, I'm sure there is part of him that enjoys playing in Portland, and he really does want to achieve that goal of winning a championship in Portland that has always been said to be his ultimate goal. But I think deep down, we all know his patience is waning, and the Blazers would be best served in moving him. And I'm going to say this now, especially because of the Tank for Wembanyama sweepstakes are going to start heating up as we hit the second half of the season. I would not be shocked if Damian Lillard gets moved before the trade deadline. I don't think it'll happen, but I would not be surprised if it does. And the Blazers just go in full tank mode in the hopes of getting that number 1 or number 2 pick in 2023, which, by the way, the Blazers actually owe their pick to the Bulls if it doesn't fall into the lottery, so they actually have to miss the playoffs if they want to keep this year's draft pick. But either way, trading Lillard before the deadline would be a huge shakeup in the NBA. And what would a trade for Dame look like? Because based on what we saw teams give up for Gobert and Murray and Donovan Mitchell, all players who are well below Dame's caliber with maybe the exception of Donovan Mitchell, so whatever team is wanting to take on Lillard is going to have to give up a lot. And there are 2 teams I'm looking at the most that would be best suited for trading for Lillard. 2 teams that have been on the cusp of being title contending teams but can't get over the hump, and that's the Phoenix Suns and the Philadelphia 76ers, both teams that have trade assets and salary to be able to make a deal work. For the Phoenix Suns, you're talking about a team that just finished with the best regular season record last season and then got embarrassed in the second round on their home court, made the finals the year prior, and were just 2 games away from winning the whole thing. And now, with Devin Booker being out, they're in a free fall. Now, obviously, Booker is going to be coming back soon, so you have to think that they're going to start winning games again. But a Lillard to the Suns trade would look like this. They trade DeAndre Ayton because no one seems to think he wants to be there, and the only reason they matched that offer sheet from the Pacers was so that they wouldn't have to lose him for nothing and could then trade him later on down the line. So DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul, and 3 first-round picks for Damian Lillard and Yusuf Nurkic. I know, it seems like a lot, but if you're trading for Lillard, you obviously can't keep Paul as well, and you actually need Paul's salary to match up and align with Lillard's and Nurkic's. Nurkic is included because if the Suns are moving on from Ayton, they're going to need another starting level center, and Nurkic fits the bill. 3 first-round picks. I'm sure some Blazers fans will say that's not enough for Lillard when you think about how much the Jazz were able to get for Gobert. Well, the Timberwolves are morons and shouldn't have traded anything close to that much for Gobert. And second, as good as Dame has been and still is, and he's a piece that you can get over the hump if you're the Phoenix Suns, you're still taking on a massive contract for a player who is already 32 and still has 4 years left on his deal where he's going to be making max money by the time he's 36 years old. That's still a risky contract to be taking on for the Suns. And for the Blazers, this gives them a young and talented big man in DeAndre Ayton who, while yes, has had attitude issues, sometimes seems to lack motivation, but a change of scene, a new team that would have him be the focus of the franchise for the future could do wonders for him. You also get Chris Paul, who is on the decline, is never going to be the Chris Paul that we once knew, but he's one of the greatest point guards to ever play the game, a vet that can mentor a younger, rebuilding team. We saw what he was able to do in getting the most out of that young Oklahoma City Thunder team. And you're still getting 3 first-round picks. It's not like you're getting no draft capital at all in return. That's still a massive haul to set you up for the future. And then, of course, for the Suns, a Booker and Lillard duo, which, yes, there would be questions about the overall fit, both being ball-dominant, heavy-scoring guards, but man, I think that duo would be so lethal, especially when you consider how quickly both of those guys can heat up from behind the arc. That would be a team that would instantly become title favorites, especially considering the complementary role players they have around them with Bridges, Cam Johnson, and even Shamet. And as for the other trade with the Philadelphia 76ers, I mean, the way I look at it is this. While yes, the Sixers are good, you could argue they are still a title contending team as currently constructed. I really don't see them being a legitimate threat to win an actual championship. Like, as good as Joel Embiid has been, they're not a better team than the Boston Celtics or Milwaukee Bucks. You could even argue the Nets when Kevin Durant is healthy. But making a trade for Damian Lillard, that puts them over the top. And the trade would look something like this. The Sixers would trade Tobias Harris and Matisse Thybulle and 3 first-round picks in exchange for Damian Lillard. Tobias Harris, really to help with matching the salaries. Thibault also included for salary purposes, but it's also a younger player for the Blazers, even though Thibault has fallen off a cliff recently. But still, a solid defender that can give them a bit of depth. And while Tobias Harris is not an all-star level player, and he's on an overpaid contract relative to his production, he's still a good player in his prime that you can work with or even flip in another trade for more assets should they choose. And still, 3 first-round picks coming your way to help you build for the future. Again, I'm only including 3 picks because while that might seem low, you also have to be realistic in that the league is now seeing what an overpay some of these teams made in shipping out massive number of picks for fringe level all-star players, and it's not working out. Teams are going to be reluctant to take on Lillard's contract for more than 3 first-round picks. That's just my opinion anyway. So anyway, all of that is to say, I think it's time for both Damian Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers to admit that their time together has run its course and it's time to start taking a different direction that would benefit both parties. I don't think it's something that would be drama-filled because I think both sides have extreme respect for each other, but it's clear it would be in their best interest to move apart and start building towards something else. But you guys let me know whether you agree or disagree on if the Blazers trading for Lillard makes sense. Do you think it'll actually even happen? Do you think it'll actually happen even if they do? Let me know in the comments, and as always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.